This is the fourth and last introductory iMovie related to the principles of ethics that we will be using throughout this course. In this iMovie, we'll look at the learning objectives related to this course. There are 4 learning objectives. The first one is this. At the end of this course, you should be able to identify the moral relevance of specific behaviors, policies, and/or issues. You should also be able to identify the way different religious and philosophical or cultural perspectives shape moral discernment. Third, you should be able to articulate reasons for a course of action consistent with your own personal moral values. And finally, fourth, you should be able to analyze and explain a moral perspective different from your own and be able to provide reasons or a reasoned response to that different perspective. Let's consider first your ability to identify the moral relevance of specific behaviors and policies. The principles we will be using will help you to develop your ability to understand why some behaviors and some policies and practices are thought to be morally wrong or prohibited, and why others are thought to be permissible or even required. For example, in most professions, including medical or healthcare professions, it is thought to be wrong for the professional to reveal to third parties information about their clients that they have come to know through the professional-to-client relationship. Why are professionals obligated to respect the confidentiality of their clients? The moral principles we are considering will help you understand how to answer that question. The short answer is that confidentiality protects privacy, and privacy is essential to maintaining one's sense of oneself as a free and independent person. It's related, therefore, to the principle of autonomy. It may also be related to fidelity, because given that professionals who deal with us have unusual access to us and information about us, they are particularly threatening to our privacy. Therefore, we've come to have a reasonable expectation that professionals will be especially committed to maintaining confidentiality. One focus in this course will be on matters about which there is disagreement, debate, and uncertainty. Consider the scenario shown here called Grandma's respirator. Grandma is extremely ill. It's unclear about whether we should remove her from the respirator. And John is asked to make that decision. Now, many people would be absolutely sure that John should not agree to the removal of his grandmother's respirator. Others would be just as sure that to do so would be permissible, at least, and maybe even an obligation. Many of us would be perplexed. We will facilitate the improvement of your ability to understand the moral relevance of a scenario such as this by carefully analyzing how the 5 moral principles we'll be using are applicable to the case. To put a difficult matter in overly simple terms, those who are certain that removing the respirator is wrong are sensitive to our obligation not to harm others, to which the principle of non-maleficence point. Those who might favor removing the respirator would likely suggest that given her condition and her poor prospects, removing the respirator is actually helping her or promoting her welfare, as the principle of beneficence suggests we must. We will look at a variety of challenging moral issues and scenarios, considering the relevance of deeply held moral values, especially moral principles, to those issues. In the process, hopefully, your ability to, quote, identify the moral relevance of specific behaviors, policies, and/or issues, unquote, will be enhanced. The second objective refers to being able to identify the way different religious and philosophical or cultural perspectives shape moral perceptions and discernment. The 5 moral principles we are using here are ones that have a prominent place in the mainstream philosophical traditions that have developed in the modern West, Europe, and North America. They, of course, have been heavily influenced by the Jewish and Christian religious traditions that have dominated in these cultures. They reflect the way those of us living in Europe and in North America have tended to think about moral matters in recent centuries. Some of the issues and cases we will consider will reflect the ways in which different cultural perspectives bring different perceptions of the moral issues at stake in them. You who are taking this course will also contribute to our coming to better understand the way different cultural perspectives shape moral perception, especially to the degree you bring a point of view or experiences that are in significant tension with the Western mainstream that is reflected in these principles. The third and fourth objectives refer to the development of your ability to articulate reasons for a course of action consistent with your own values, and to understand and respond to perspectives different from your own. Difficult and controversial case studies will be a regular component of this course. You will be challenged again and again to make moral judgments about what ought to be done or not done in those cases. You'll be asked to provide reasons why the course of action you advocate is the right one. Reasons aimed at convincing others that your judgment's not just a matter of strong personal opinion, but is, in fact, right and valid. That it is a judgment that other reasonable, right-thinking people ought to make. Now, at the same time, you will be expected to explain why others, who may be as thoughtful and reasonable and certain as you are about your judgments, come to different conclusions in a particular scenario. A major goal of this course is to increase your moral sensitivity by helping you develop your ability to understand and appreciate why others think differently than you do. You will be challenged to understand and appreciate different perspectives and judgments, but not necessarily to agree with them. You will be expected to be able to explain why you don't find those other perspectives and the reasons behind them persuasive to you. All of this means that we are hopeful that you will develop through this course a better understanding of the moral life, your own and that of other people. And surely understanding the moral life involves not simply understanding the judgments that people make and the beliefs that people have about moral matters. It involves understanding the way they think about those matters. It means understanding the reasons behind the beliefs and judgments that people make. We will truly understand ourselves only when we understand our reasons for believing what we do and making the judgments that we make. And we will be able to understand and respect others who think differently only when we have some understanding of the reasons that they believe what they do and make the judgments that they make. Gaining that sensitivity to the way others think is a significant goal of this course. All of this is reflected in what the general education program here at Shenandoah University says about moral reasoning. Moral reasoning, it says, involves an ability to recognize the moral implications of various situations, policies, and decisions, an appreciation of and respect for the variety of perspectives operative in a multicultural and global context. To act morally and ethically, one must be able to discern a course of action that is consistent with one's own core values in relation to one's social cultural environment, as these are shaped by religious and philosophical commitments. Responsible citizenship involves providing publicly accessible reasons for one's course of action consistent with one's core values while respecting moral pluralism. As that statement suggests, the ability to articulate reasons for one's course of action and to understand the reasons of those who disagree with you is an important aspect of responsible citizenship. Well, hopefully now you have been provided a good introduction and you have a good introductory understanding of the approach we'll be taking in this course and what will be expected of you in it and what you can hope for in it. Next week, we'll begin to look seriously and in depth at the 5 principles of ethics.